Hello and welcome. How are you doing today? My name is Lynn and I am going to be crafting with one of the newest die sets by Becca Feeken, and this is part of her Postage Edge collection, which is pretty cool because there's what I really love about it is that it's a really nice set of nested shape dies because and it does come in different shapes and it might be a little bit different for each shape, but for the square anyhow, there are 8 dies in total. And I like to think about it as having 4 sets because each set has a die that has the postage edge, and then it's got a square die that's slightly smaller than that has a plain straight edge but with a pierced dot border design. And so you can layer the two up, you can die cut them together and create a frame. So really nice. And then you get that combination of 2 in 4 different sizes. And so here I've chosen one of the postage edge dies, and I've just cut that out 4 times out of 4 different colored cardstocks. And these are Spellbinders cardstocks, which have quickly become my favorite because they are smooth, so you can stamp on them. They come in 100 pound, which is great because that's kind of my minimum for card bases. And I've never had solid color cardstock this thick before, so I typically don't make, if ever, really colored cardstock card bases until I started buying Spellbinders cardstock. Because the thickest I think I have is maybe 80 pound, and I feel like that's a little too thin for your card base, because sometimes when you put a lot on, like a lot of layers or die cuts or foam on the front of your card, if your card base is made from thinner cardstock or lighter weight cardstock, it can kind of feel a little bit floppy when you open it, and the back just doesn't feel like there's enough structure to balance everything that's going on the front of the card. 80 pound might be okay if it's a relatively flat card with not a lot of layers or foam or anything like that, but that's why I tend to use 120, but 100 pound works well too. So what I've started to do here is I pulled out another die set. This is actually from the Garden Shutters collection. Really, really fun interactive die set that is pretty cool, but I'm not actually using it for that. I'm using it for the butterflies, because what's great about it is that you have the outline of the butterfly, which is great for cutting silhouettes, for example, but there are additional dies that you can cut and layer onto that solid base and give your butterfly some more detail, some more color and design. So really fun. I'm using 2 out of the 3 different butterflies, and I'm just die cutting it twice so that each butterfly shape that you see, you'll see it represented in 2 different colors on this card. And I have die cut there's a separate die for the body of the butterfly, and I've die cut that out of sort of a white with it's got a little bit of pink in there too, but it's a glitter cardstock. And I figured that's a good neutral that can be used on all of the different butterflies, because as you can see, I've got butterflies in all the 4 different colors. I used the solid butterfly die to cut out like right in the center of those square postage stamps. And then I'm gonna just inlay the butterflies right back in after I have assembled them with all of their decorative pieces. So really fun. This part of paper piecing and kind of layering the butterfly probably took the longest, because the bits they're not too tiny, but they are small, and it takes a little bit of time to position them. But what I found is if you can't find the right orientation, just rotate it, and then if rotating it doesn't help, move it to the opposite side of the butterfly. And then rotate it again. If you by then you should have the right location and the right orientation. And some pieces are a lot more obvious than others. I found that the bottom wings of the butterflies were all pretty easy to identify. The shapes are really unique, and so it wasn't hard. The more challenging for me anyway, the more challenging part was the top wings of the butterfly. But when it's assembled, you'll have a very thin border of that base color showing all the way around the outside edge. I found that when I assembled this, the top and bottom wings, the pieces that layer on top, they actually meet up and touch. And so it's really just on the outside border, and you barely see much of any of it, but you do see some of it, especially up close. You can see some of that base layer. And so I'm gonna continue to assemble these, but I'll do the other butterfly on camera, and then I'll do the other two off camera. So this design butterfly has its upper wing has the pierced dots that are cut into it, and those dots go on the outside bottom edge of the top wing. So you saw I had it on the wrong butterfly body to begin with, but if you just keep moving around, keep rotating it, you'll eventually find where it goes. But now that I've done it once, I know that that dotty detail goes at the bottom. And again, this bottom portion, pretty easy to identify this one too, because it comes to, it's got that little point that comes out of it. And so that one is pretty easy to layer up. And I'm just going to cut it again so that I can mix and match the colors a little bit, and not have all the detailed layers, the additional layers, be the same color. And once I'm done, I'll have the 4 butterflies ready to inlay back in. Now, the idea of cutting an aperture out of a shaped die cut is kind of neat. And as I was putting this together, I kind of had some different ideas for different looks that you could achieve with this. So I might be playing with this idea a little bit more. But my card base is cut to 5.5 by 5.5, and I thought that I would add a little bit of pattern paper as a backdrop, so that for me it's still quite hard to leave a lot of white space. I'm okay with leaving negative space, but often I feel like I need that white to have some texture or a little bit of something. And in this case, I added some pattern paper, but I wanted a color that wasn't one of the 4 of my postage stamps, but that would still coordinate with the 4. So that's why I chose a nice light blue. And when I had the 4 postage stamps here, and you can see I've used the smallest one, but you get a pretty wide range of sizes in this die set. So it's a really great nested shaped die set. And if you don't have any yet, maybe check out some of the other shapes as well, because you do get the option of square, which is what I have. There's also circle, oval, rectangle, and I think there's even a DL. Yeah, there's a slimline set as well. So a lot of different shapes, and just depending on what style of card you like to work with, you can maybe pick up a couple of these. The nice thing about it is that I think it's really nice that it does have the combination of straight edge squares, or whatever shape you do end up getting. So that makes it really versatile, because sometimes you may not always want the postage edge, but it's great because you have 4 different sizes in the postage edge, but then you also have 4 different sizes in the plain straight edge too. But that straight edge isn't all that plain because it does have that pierced dot design. And if you use them together, you can die cut them together and get a nice frame, or you can layer one on top of the other and build up your dimension that way. So I chose this sentiment die set. I think I have almost all of the words that were released in this. I forget what the name of the collection is, but it's got 2 word dies, and one of them has some deboss diagonal lines in it that is meant to be used as a shadow layer, but I'm actually going to reverse it. I'm going to put the layer that has the diagonal deboss lines, because my background paper has diagonal lines in it. So I thought that might be a nice, it might be nice to kind of pick up that design up and feature it in the sentiment. But for it to really be noticeable, I feel like it has to be the top layer. So then I've used the solid sentiment die as my shadow layer instead, and I die cut that out of a slightly darker shade of blue. But as I was auditioning it on my card, the sentiment felt like it was a little bit hard to read, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to put a like a white sentiment strip across here, or what I was going to do to actually make it so that the sentiment pops off of the page a little bit better. And what I settled on was to glue the sentiment down to some white, just plain white cardstock, and then I'm going to actually fussy cut a bubble layer, essentially, all the way around my sentiment. So it gives the entire sentiment a nice white border. That way it's got a little bit of contrast, and it's a little bit more solid, especially in between the curves of the letters, and hopefully that makes it a little bit more legible off of the background there. And so I'm attaching this with some 3D glue gel because it's going right in the center, which is, some parts of it will be direct to the pattern paper, some parts of it will be on top of the postage edge die cut. And so whenever I'm attaching something and it's going over different layers or thicknesses of cardstock but beneath it, I like to just use a 3D glue gel because you can kind of push that down and level it off as needed. I've pulled out some of my gems here, and I so rarely use this, and it's taken me forever to get through this whole set. But I thought this was a good opportunity to bring them out because some of the butterflies already have that pierced dot detailing. And so I thought I would just fill in those dots with some of these gemstones. And then on this particular butterfly, I'm actually adding more dotty detail. And so here I'm actually adding the gems where there haven't actually been anything die cut through there. But so I think that's kind of something that's fun to do, so you can add extra detailing if you want. And I think the gemstones just offer a little bit more shine and texture and interest to the butterflies. And I'm trying to kind of mix up the colors but still stay within the whole light pink, dark pink, and a light purple and dark purple. So I've tried to pick my gemstones to sort of coordinate with the four main colors of cardstock that I've used. And I did pull in, this was the only one where I used a nice clear gemstone. I should have actually used that on a different butterfly just so that this one didn't stand out too much on its own. But I like ultimately how this turned out. I think it's the gemstones were because these are so tiny. I don't often think to use them because they're so small, but they fit into these little pierced dot details just perfectly. So that really worked. That worked out really well, and because they're small, it's still relatively low profile. So I think this will still ship pretty easily. They're not super dimensional. So really, really fun. And that's going to pretty much finish my card. I like the whole idea of, cutting a shaped aperture out of these postage stamps, and it's kind of a fun, neat idea of, because you don't even have to inlay the pieces back in. I could have used those individual butterflies that I cut out on a separate card and get a little bit of a 2-for-1, or you could create mini shaker cards out of each of those quadrants after you've cut out that aperture in the center there. So lots of fun ideas. I think I might be revisiting this design and, maybe giving it a different twist on future cards. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you're interested in any of these products, I'll leave links to everything in the description box below. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.